Hey everybody, this is Tracy here for another edition of A View from Tracy's Point, and we are here to recap This Is Us, Season 2, Episode 14, I think, which was titled Super Bowl Sunday. So I know I haven't recapped this show since last season. I was going to do it this season, and as I mentioned in some of my other videos that, life happened. My daughter was getting married, some other stuff was going on, and so I wasn't able to start recapping it when it started. And it's such an oh my God, such a powerful show with so much going on that if you can never get caught up, like, the Real Housewives of Atlanta and shows like that. If I get behind on them, I can get caught up pretty quickly, but this show is just too intense. But I did say that once we found out how Jack died, that I would at least recap that video. So if you recap that episode, so if you were watching last week, was it last week or the week? No, not last Tuesday, but the Tuesday before that. We did get a taste, a hint of what happened to Jack, and we know that the house caught on fire. Well, we knew that earlier, but it was confirmed that he was going to die because the house caught on fire. But I'm sure most of us was thinking that he died in the fire, but they had one more twist and turn for us in this episode. But the whole fire started back when Jack and Rebecca first got the house, and one of their neighbors was cleaning out their garage, I think it was. They may have been putting their house up for sale, and they were trying to get rid of stuff. And so they had this crock pot, and they wanted to give them the crock pot, just things that they thought a new couple starting out would need. And so in the 20 years later, I have many years it was, because I think the kids were 17, so they probably had been married about 3 years. So 20 years later, they have this crock pot, and the guy had told them when he gave them the crock pot that there was something was going on with the wiring, with the cord, and so you have to wiggle it around and whatever. And so Jack was cooking, I can't think, was he cooking chili or something? Because it was Super Bowl night. So maybe he was making something for Super Bowl. And he had a towel, and he laid the towel down. And so he thought he turned the crock pot off. But then the crock pot came back on, and that's how the fire started. I thought it was so funny because the maker of crock pot put out a statement, a couple of articles stating that it is very highly unlikely that a fire could start with a crock pot in the manner that they showed on the show. But I'm thinking way back then it might have been able to do that. But I know that I was sitting there watching that show, and I could use a crock pot all the time to make my chili, and I was like, okay, I'm about to throw this crock pot away, because the last thing I need is for my house to burn down. But the makers of crock pots say you ain't got nothing to worry about, that that type of thing don't happen, and definitely won't be happening in this day and time with technological advances. So fast forward to last night's episode. And so we know that, what's the boy, Kevin, that Kevin had went to Sophia's, and him and Sophia then snuck out the house and went out to some lover's lane spot and then fell asleep in the car. And then Randall had came home, and Kate, I think Kate was always there, but she was upstairs doing something. So anyway, they're in bed. Jack wakes up, and he sits up, and I think he went to drink a glass of water, but then he started smelling the smoke and was like, what's going on? So he goes and he opens the door, and the entire house is engulfed in flames. And so he goes back in the house, in the room, closes the door, and he tells Rebecca to get up and go run water in the bathroom and wet all the towels and rags that are in there, and to open the window. So he goes out, and he goes to, he wakes the kids up, tell them that the house is on fire. So he goes to Randall's room, And, he gets Randall, brings Randall into the room with Rebecca, catches his breath and clears his throat and everything. Then he goes to get Kate. So Kate was scared to leave the room. And y'all can't stand Kate. Oh, she be working my nerves sometimes on this show. And so even as a little girl, she was working my nerves. So she's afraid to come out of the room, which I guess is a natural response to house, flames shooting all up everywhere. You don't want to get burned up. But what's the other alternative? And I can't remember why he said they couldn't go out of her window. Maybe the flames was already like shooting out of her window or something. No, that couldn't have been the case because they were in the room together. I can't remember why he said they couldn't go out of her bedroom window, that they had to go back to him and Rebecca's room. But anyway, Kate doesn't want to leave. And I think he ran back to the room, got some towels or something, and then went back. And so Kate was still saying, I'm scared. I don't want to go. I don't want to go. Just wasting time. So then he told her, we got to go. You have no choice. So he takes the mattress off the bed, and then he tells Kate, get on my bike. And then he's going down the hallway with the mattress. That mattress done caught on fire. It's burning his hands up. And so they finally get back in the room. But Rebecca and Randall were still in that room. And I'm like, why y'all ain't jumped out that window yet? So, child, they get out, and then he ties some sheets together, and he lowered Randall down, and then he lowered Kate down, and then he lowered Rebecca down. And so he was getting ready to, jump off the little roof, the east, I can't think of what they call those things, where it's like you have the house, and then you have, some more roof that goes down to create, the porch. The gable, is it the gable? Or is the gable the thing that goes like this? I should know this because I work for a construction company. I can't remember what it's called, but anyway, I think he was just going to jump down or tie the rag, the towels, the sheets to something, and then slide down himself. But anyway, Kate remembers the dog. The dog is still in the house. So she's whining about that dog, and Rebecca was like, leave that dog with it. That dog had come down off that roof. We got to get back. We got to get away. And I ain't heard no police sirens, no fire trucks or nothing. The neighbors ain't came running out, turning on the water hose, trying to put the fire out. Rebecca never wasn't thinking about it either. So Jack, not wanting to disappoint his precious Kate, went back into the burning house to find that dog. And I am not a dog lover, so if there was a dog in my house and the house was on fire, the dog just been dead, and we go down to the pet shop and get another dog. And I know that's gonna piss some people off, but I'm just not the pet person. So anyway, Jack goes back inside, and they're standing there, and then all of a sudden, the flames get worse, and so it was flames coming out of 2 or 3 other windows, and then the window to their bedroom that they had all escaped through, all of a sudden the fire shot through that room, and that room was totally engulfed in flames. And so it was just quiet, and they were like, oh God, thinking that, he had died in the house. But then all of a sudden we heard the dog barking, and the front door bust open. Now, I don't know how Jack got through the front door, through the living room, because the whole downstairs was already on fire. But the Lord made a way. Okay, so he got on out. They were so happy and thankful. And I think we finally heard the firefighters showing up. And so they go to, I think they went to Miguel's house. They went to somebody's house to drop the kids off. And then the paramedics, they had told Jack that, he had smoke inhalation and he needed to get to the hospital so they could check him out. And so they dropped the kids off, and then they go to the hospital, and they're checking Jack out and treating the burns on his hands and everything. And so they had to run some tests, to see how much damage had been done to the smoke. But he was up and he was talking, and Rebecca was talking. So doctor said he'd be back, once they got everything set up. So then Rebecca said she was hungry, to get something to eat. She was going to get some sodas or whatever. And she went and made some phone calls to call wherever the kids were at to let them know that, Jack was okay, that, he had some burns and they had treated the burns, and, they would be home shortly to get the kids. And then she wanted to get a hotel. She needed 2 hotel rooms. So she called the hotel and got to arguing with them about the rooms. And so she gets off the phone, but the whole time she's talking, you see all this activity in the background, and the nurses running around to my, where the doctor, we need the doctor back here. And Rebecca is totally oblivious to what's going on. And so then she hangs up the phone and she goes over to the snack machine. And so it was almost empty. And she ended up buying a candy bar. So she gets the candy bar out and she's just doodling around when the doctor comes over and he tells her he needs to talk to her. She's like, oh, thank you so much. And, you know, blah, 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 going on and on. And the man said, I need you to listen to what I got to say. Y'all, Jake had a massive heart attack. So he was telling her that the smoke damages the lungs, and when the lungs are damaged, it affects the heart. And so he done had this massive heart attack, and Jake done died. I was like, Lord Jesus. like we knew he was going to die, but it still was so emotional. And it just, oh my God. So Rebecca was like so in denial. So I can't believe this just happened. And I know the feeling because I remember when my dad died, that the day my dad died, he had a podiatrist appointment. And I had came home from work, left work early. I remember that day. It was such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful fall day. We were doing like this cultural day at work, because I used to be over the culture club at work. And we were doing this thing where you brought in dishes from different cultures or whatever. And I had dropped my food off, went and picked my dad up, took my dad to the podiatrist. And so I had dropped him off in the front and I said I was going to go park the car. And I think I was listening to Steve Harvey Morning Show, and they were doing the strawberry letter, and so it was getting good, and I was sitting there listening to the strawberry letter when this homeless guy walked up, and so I'm like, oh my God. So the guy started talking to me, I'm talking to him, and trying to listen to the strawberry letter, and so in my head, I kept saying, don't get out the car, because you don't know if he's going to try and rob you or what's going on. And so the guy kept talking. I'm thinking, okay, by now, you know, because all they were doing was like looking at my dad's feet and cutting, because he had some issues with his toenails. And so they was checking to see if the procedure they had done previously was okay. So I said, he's only going to be in there a little while. This man won't shut up. So finally, I get out the car, and the guy keeps talking, and now he's walking with me as I'm going to the doctor's office, and I kept saying, don't touch this guy, don't touch this guy. So we get into the doctor's office, and so the nurse was looking like, well, do I need to call the police? You okay? So the guy, you know, he was talking, so I think he felt kind of uncomfortable the way they were looking at him. So then he said, well, it was so nice to meet you, and, you know, I hope everything works out with your dad. And he took his hand and he shook my hand. And I was like, oh my God, I said, don't touch that man's hand. And because I was just feeling some kind of vibe inside. So the guy left. My dad finally came out. So then I kept saying, oh, you need to wash your... No, before my dad came out, I said, you need to go wash your hands. But at the moment I was getting ready to go to the bathroom, my dad came out. And then I said to him, I said, okay, well, don't touch your dad. You know, wait till you get back to the house and, you know, then go inside and wash your hands. So when we got back to the house, my dad, you know, he was shuffling along. Oh, and one thing I forgot to mention, when I went to pick my dad up, he said, I'm so tired and I don't understand why I got to be going through all this. And I was like, oh, Dad, it's just a beautiful day, you know, get out your mood and come on. So when we got back to the house, he had to use the bathroom. So he get out the car, he's shuffling to, you know, trying to hurry up and get to the house. So I was walking with him, but then, you know, he was going to the bathroom and I said, oh, I'll just go, I'll wash my hands. No, I think at that point I had forgotten about washing my hands, and I hadn't touched my daddy and everything anyway. So whatever was going on in my mind. So that night I get a phone call from my sister telling me that they had just taken my dad to the hospital because he had suffered a massive stroke. And it was like his third stroke. And they said, you know, there's no coming back from it and everything. And so he was on life support for like, I think that was on a Wednesday, and he was on life support until that Friday. And, you know, he never regained consciousness or anything. So they were going to turn the life support off. And I had been at the hospital for like 2 days. And I said, okay, let me just go home, take a shower, get myself together. So they said, okay, 7 o'clock, we're going to turn the life support off. And I think it was like 3 o'clock at that point. I got home. And somebody called, I can't remember who it was, and said that my dad, as soon as I walked out the door, his vitals started dropping. So I needed to hurry up and get back to the hospital. Got back to the hospital, and I think my dad died like 3-4 minutes after I got back there. So I know that feeling of you just holding on with all hope that everything's going to be okay, or the person is doing fine one minute and then the next minute, something catastrophic has happened. So I understood Rebecca being in shock about what had taken place. And so she had that candy bar in her hand, and she bit down on the candy bar, and she was like, looking at the doctor, like, what are you talking about? Like, I just left out that room. He was doing fine. He's okay. And so the man was like, your husband is dead. He's gone. And she was like, I don't believe you. And so she went in the room, and his body, he was just laying back on the bed. And I was just like, oh my God. It just brought back so many memories. And I always post on Facebook after I watch This Is Us, like, oh my God, I'm crying again, such an emotional episode. And so people always say, well, why do you keep watching This Is Us if it makes you cry, if it makes you sad? And I think for me personally, and it's probably for a lot of people, that we go through so much in life that we don't really, we deal with it because it's a part of life. There's nothing we can do to change it. And so I think watching the show is just so true to life. And so you see things that remind you of things that happened in your past, or you see a decision that one of the cast members make, and you're like, oh my God, I know how this is going to turn out because I was in that same situation and made that same decision. And like when I look at Kate and how Kate just has all this internal stuff going on that she projects on other people, it just reminds me of relationships that I've been in, relationships with my own daughter, and it just makes you think. So when stuff happens and I start crying on the show, it's just that I'm thinking about so many other things. It's not what happened in that scene, but just memories and reflections that it brings up in my own life and from my own past. And so you start crying about what just happened on the show, but then you realize you're crying about some past hurt or some past triumph or just some other emotion that scene conjured up. And so they had to, Rebecca, she finally had to get herself together, go to the kids and let the kids know that their dad has died, which I just can't even imagine having to tell my child, especially a teenager, that your father died when you just saw him walking around. He just saved your life. He just saved all this memorabilia from the house. Because that was the other thing. When he came out with the dog, he had them ran all through the house and got photo albums and pictures and all this stuff. Oh, God, we just love Jack. So anyway, then they had to go find that boy, Kevin, who had ran off with Sophie. So then they finally found him and let him know that his dad had died. So that's what was going on in the past. So in the future, it's Super Bowl Sunday, and I thought it was so cool how on the TV they actually had scenes. I don't know if it was the actual Super Bowl game, like if they were able to edit that quickly, or if it was just a game where the Patriots and the Eagles had played each other in the past. But so the Super Bowl was going on, and it was just like a real feel like it was actually the day of the Super Bowl, and they were filming this episode. And so Randall was throwing a party for like 20 people. It was the friends of the girls and I guess their parents, and he had cooked all this food. He had made the nacho and sandwich ring thing. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this thing, but it's like massive, but it looks like a football stadium, but it's built from the sandwiches and the nachos and stuff. So he had made all this stuff, all these appetizers, but the oldest daughter, oh God, I can't remember her name. Is Tess the oldest daughter? Tessa? So the oldest daughter, she's all depressed and sad and everything. She's not in the festive mood, and just being finicky. Then Annie, the little girl, she had this lizard. So the lizard gets out during the party, and everybody starts looking for the lizard. I mean, the moms was in the background with bottles of wine because Randall was getting on their nerves, giving out, talking about the day and what it means to him. And so then the phone rung, and Beth went to answer the phone in the kitchen and stepped on the lizard and killed the lizard. So they had to have a funeral for the lizard during the Super Bowl game. And so Randall, he was giving one of his heartfelt speeches, and then he finally, broke down and told him that his dad, the reason the day was so important to him is because it's the day that his dad had died, and it had been 20 years since the dad died. And so it was 20 years the dad had died, so they had been in that house for 17 years. I think I said 20 years for the house. So anyway, Tess goes upstairs, and so he goes upstairs, to check on her and make sure she's okay. And so she tells him that she just doesn't like all the changes that's going on. And it's like he done got a new job. They brought Deja in. And so he's doing all this new stuff. And it's like he wants a new life, and she's feeling left out. And so he explains to her that, she is his number one priority. He loves her. And that, in life we have to change and grow. And then he asks her, did she not want them to get another foster child? And so then she said, no, being a foster parent is a great thing because you're helping somebody else. So throughout their part of the show, we kept having this scene of this social worker talking to this little boy, and so she's going to place the little boy. So we thinking when the phone call came in, and the other thing, Tess told him that she kept taking the phone because they had a cordless phone, that she kept taking the phone off the hook so the battery would die, so that they couldn't get the call from the social worker when a child came available. And so Beth had put the phone back on the hook, so now it didn't recharge, and then during the party was when the phone rung and she went and answered it. So we're thinking that the call was from the social worker, and the social worker was saying that this little boy was available, because remember they wanted to get a boy this time. Well, it turns out that whole scene with the social worker and the little boy is actually Tess as an adult, and she has become a social worker because her life was so impacted by her parents taking in children, foster kids. And then, to our surprise, the phone call was actually Deja. And Deja, we don't know what's going on. We'll find out tomorrow night why Deja came back. But it was actually Deja calling and saying that she was on her way. And then the doorbell rings and she comes in. I was like, oh my God, like this show is so good. So then over with Kate and Toby. Kate is being her typical annoying, selfish self. And so she's watching some old videos, because remember Jack used to record everything, and they had those VHS videos. Some of y'all probably don't know about the VHS, but they real big videos, and you stuck them in this machine, and then the machine would play it, and when the machine got old, it would chew up the ribbon of the video. So that's what happened. So then they had to go to this guy that Toby knew to open up the VCR device and get the VHS tape out of it. And so then he kept telling Kate, why don't you just take all those videos and put them on the cloud? But she didn't want to do that. She wanted to watch the video. But then afterwards, he went ahead, after the guy was able to save the video, he went ahead and saved it, digitally, so she could watch it on the cloud. And so she finally admitted that she liked that way better, and she was okay. But she just treat Toby so wrong, and I don't know how long he gonna put up with her and her little funky attitude. But she said that whole experience had taught her so much, so hopefully she gonna get better. So then over with Rebecca and Kevin were together, because Kevin homeless right now, so he was staying with his mom. And so she says that the way she commemorates the day is that she cooks this big pan of lasagna, and then she eats it all by herself while she's watching the game. And then I think she sends Miguel away. I don't think Miguel can be with her on the anniversary of Jack's death. So when Miguel was gone somewhere, she asked Kevin to stay, but Kevin said no, he didn't want to stay. It was too depressing. And so she was telling Kevin that one thing she likes about the day is that something funny always happens on that day to let her know that Jack is looking down on her. And so she was sharing some experiences with Kevin, and Kevin was looking at her like she was crazy. So then Kevin leaves, and what Kevin does to commemorate the day is he goes to the cemetery. And so he was out there and he was sitting down by this tree, right? And he was saying that, you know, he was talking to his dad, apologizing, you know, for the hurtful things he said the day that he died, you know, before he ran off to Sophia's. And so the whole while I was sitting there saying, now, when they were showing the scenes to Jack's funeral, I don't remember that tree being there, like, and I don't remember that water and stuff that's going on. But Kevin was sitting there talking to his dad, and I was like, well, God bless him. You know, so then he called his mom to let us, you know, see how she was doing, and I asked, you know, did any funny thing happen? And she was like, no, nothing funny has happened. What are you doing? So then he says, I'm at Dad's burial place. I don't even know if it was a cemetery or not. They might have just threw his ashes out there or something. So he says, I'm sitting at this tree. So when he said that, Rebecca had this look on her face like, well, how you sitting at that tree? They cut that tree down like 5 years ago. Like, that was the expression on her face, but she didn't say nothing. So Kevin kept talking, and then finally Kevin said, you know, I'm sitting at this tree, and I'm looking around, and I'm thinking, this might not even be the tree that he was buried by, or we threw the ashes or whatever they did to Jack. And I said, okay, so it wasn't just me thinking, like, I don't think that's the tree where your daddy was buried at. So then that made Rebecca laugh. And she was like, see, this is what I told you. And I think that was pretty much what happened on the show. But it was a good, you know, some little glitches in the writing as far as the fire and stuff, but an amazing episode. And I was telling my friends on Facebook, I said, last time I cried that hard over a TV show was the movie Imitation of Life. Like, I was just sitting there boo-hoo crying about the show, boo-hoo crying about my dad, boo-hoo crying just to be boo-hoo crying. And I was like, oh my God, gotta get it together, girl, get it together. But guys, that was it for the Super Bowl ceremony, Super Bowl Sunday of This Is Us. Great show. Let me know what you thought about the show. If there's something you want to add that I may have missed or correct that I may have said wrong, go ahead and leave your comments in the comment section. Rate the video, share the video on your social media platforms, and as always, subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. And thank you so very much if you have subscribed to the channel. So I shall talk to you guys the next time. Bye-bye.